Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
From AI-inspired insights from farmers.
If you're enjoying what we're doing here, we'd love to hear from you too.
Absolutely.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and definitely leave a comment telling us what you want to see more of on this deep dive.
We're always looking for new ideas, and we really value your feedback.
So what farm-related mysteries are you dying to uncover?
Right.
What questions are keeping you up at night? Let us know, and maybe we'll tackle them in a future deep dive. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at farming, maybe moving past some of the romantic ideas about it. We're going to get into the real financial and mental health challenges, especially if you're new to farming or perhaps thinking about getting into it.
Yeah, the postcard image isn't always the full picture, is it?
Not quite. You can be much tougher day to day than many realize.
Absolutely. So our goal here is really to unpack how these things connect inflation, the financial side, mental well-being, and look at what support exists, what solutions are being talked about, particularly for you if you're just starting out or weighing your options in agriculture.
And we're drawing on quite a few sources for this. We've got a report from the University of Maryland Extension looking right at that finance mental health link.
Right, and another from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, digging into the sort of root causes of farmer mental health issues.
We also pulled some context from places like Wikipedia and Reasons to be Cheerful, looked at research on how crucial finances are for managing stress.
An overview of rural mental health resources from the Rural Health Information Hub, and a piece from Food Tank that really highlights this crisis in farmer mental health.
Okay, so let's start with inflation. It affects everyone, obviously, but it seems to put a unique kind of pressure on farmers.
It really does. I mean, farming is already financially volatile, right? You've got unpredictable weather, prices for your crops or livestock can swing wildly.
Right.
Unexpected things happen, equipment breaks down, animals get sick. Our sources talk about this constant something factor that just adds layer upon layer of financial risk.
And inflation just makes all that existing instability worse.
Exactly. It adds this extra layer of, well, helplessness almost. It makes planning incredibly difficult. And that leads us to this concept called the cost-price squeeze.
Okay, the cost-price squeeze. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So basically, it means the costs farmers pay for inputs, things like fuel, fertilizer, seed, machinery, vet bills, you name it. Those costs are going up much faster than the prices they get when they sell their products.
Right.
And it's not a small difference. One source mentioned that over the last 50 years, input prices have shot up almost twice as fast as the prices farmers receive. So those profit margins just keep getting tighter and tighter.
Wow, twice as fast.
Yeah.
That's huge. So farmers are spending more and more, but not earning proportionally more back. That sounds incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
How does that squeeze affect what they do on the farm and just their state of mind?
Well, when your profit per acre or per animal starts shrinking, the main way to try and keep your income steady is often to get bigger, expand the operation.
Makes sense.
But expanding usually means taking on more debt. You need more land, maybe bigger equipment, so the debt load increases, and with it, the anxiety. We see this reflected in figures like the rise in Canadian farm debt, for example.
And it's not just general inflation causing this, is it? Our sources also mentioned corporate concentration playing a role.
That's a really important piece of the puzzle. In many parts of the food system, think seeds, agrochemicals, even meat processing, there are only a few very large companies dominating the market. This lack of competition can mean farmers end up paying more for essential inputs, and they might have fewer options for selling their products. They become price takers, basically, with very little power to negotiate.
So pressure from rising general costs and pressure from these concentrated industries, it's easy to see how that financial strain translates into mental health struggles.
Oh, absolutely. The connection is direct. Constantly worrying about paying the bills, making loan payments, even just keeping a roof over your head. It leads to chronic stress, trouble sleeping, and can really contribute to serious mental distress.
And the statistics are stark.
They are. Tragically, the suicide rate among farmers is reported to be significantly higher than the general population, maybe 2 to 3 times higher in some studies.
Yeah.
It really underscores the severity of the situation.
That's incredibly sobering. And one source pointed out something that makes it even harder. This tendency for farmers to blame themselves when they face financial problems.
Yes, that's a critical point. Despite all these huge external pressures, inflation, market concentration, weather, farmers might internalize the struggle and feel like it's their own fault, their own failure. And research shows this self-blame is strongly linked to suicide risk. It's vital to remember these are often systemic problems, not personal ones.
Okay, let's broaden the focus now to the mental health breakdown itself. Our Canadian source called it a crisis.
It really is a widespread issue. Farmers, certainly in Canada, based on that source, show higher rates of stress, depression, and anxiety compared to other populations. And while getting people access to therapists or hotlines is important,
Sure.
our sources really stress that we need to look upstream. We need to understand the underlying causes, not just treat the symptoms. And key among those causes are economic uncertainty and increasingly climate change.
Let's dig into that economic uncertainty beyond the cost-price squeeze. What else is at play?
Well, one major factor is the financialization of farmland. Land is increasingly treated like an investment asset, like stocks or gold, rather than just a place to grow food.
Yep.
This drives up land prices and rental rates, sometimes way beyond what makes sense based on farming income alone. It makes it incredibly hard for new or young farmers to get started or to expand. Owning land can feel completely out of reach.
So it creates insecurity right from the start for many. And you mentioned global markets too.
Definitely. Things like trade liberalization can expose farmers to really volatile global prices, often without strong safety nets. Power shifts towards big international corporations. The Canadian hog market collapse after they got rid of a single-desk selling system is a stark example of how policy changes and global forces can hammer farmers. Even just negotiating trade deals can cause immense stress, especially for farmers in supply-managed sectors like dairy or poultry in some areas who worry about being undercut by imports.
And then layered on top of all that is climate change.
Which is becoming a massive factor. It directly threatens farms' economic survival and, farmers' mental health. More frequent and intense extreme weather droughts, floods, heat waves means crop losses, damaged infrastructure, and just enormous stress.
Beyond those big economic and environmental pressures, the Canadian source also talked about social factors, the sort of social determinants of health.
Right. These are the broader conditions that affect well-being. In farming, this can include rural depopulation, which leads to more isolation, fewer neighbors, weaker support networks.
Yeah.
Also, discrimination and violence faced by marginalized farmers, indigenous farmers, black farmers, 2S LGBTQ plus individuals. That takes a heavy toll. Plus, the fact that on a farm, work and home life are often completely intertwined. There's rarely a clear separation, which means constant pressure.
And the culture itself.
And the culture, yes. There's often this strong culture of stoicism, of keeping quiet about emotional struggles, that makes it really hard for people to reach out for help when they need it.
It's clear the challenges run deep. So when we look at support and solutions, what are the key takeaways from our sources? Where are the gaps?
Well, a big point is that just focusing on more mental health services while necessary isn't enough by itself. You have to tackle the root economic causes.
Right, the upstream issues.
Exactly. We need policies that actually improve economic stability for farmers. The example of Alberta pork producers looking at maybe going back to a single desk selling system shows farmers trying to find ways to gain more market power.
And what about how farming is done? There's discussion around sustainable practices.
Yes, supporting farmers to transition to more sustainable methods like agroecology, think cover crops, integrated pest management, things that reduce reliance on expensive inputs like chemical fertilizers that's seen as really important. It can lower environmental impact and potentially make farms more resilient in the long run, though the sources do note that government support for this transition is often lagging.
The idea of food sovereignty also came up. How does that fit in?
Food sovereignty is about building food systems that are more local, more sustainable, and prioritize the well-being of the people growing the food and the communities eating it. It's seen as a way to potentially give farmers more control, reduce reliance on those volatile global markets, and improve overall well-being.
Makes sense. And tackling discrimination?
Crucial. Creating a more inclusive and equitable industry is vital for everyone's mental health and the health of the sector.
Okay, and for direct mental health support, what specifically is needed?
We need more access to mental health care that understands farming. Farmer-focused helplines, counseling services where the providers get the unique pressures. There are some good initiatives like the Farmer Wellness Initiatives in Ontario and Manitoba. But coverage isn't consistent nationally. There are gaps. Farm organizations are also critical. They provide support, they advocate, they do research, and they need continued investment. Even small community things, like putting mental health resource info in goodie bags at co-ops like they did in Iowa, can make a difference.
We also saw mention of diversifying income.
Yeah, finding other ways to bring in money, whether it's hosting wind turbines, direct-to-consumer sales like farmers markets, agritourism, anything that can reduce reliance solely on commodity prices can help ease financial stress.
But sometimes it's simpler than that.
Sometimes, yes. One of the most basic but important things is just community support, people reaching out to neighbors, checking in, offering a listening ear or practical help if someone seems to be struggling.
Let's shift to some of the expert insights, particularly from that University of Maryland research, linking finance and stress. What stood out there?
Well, it clearly confirmed that financial strain is a major driver of stress and, tragically, suicide risk for farmers. What was really interesting was what farmers themselves said they found most helpful for reducing that financial stress.
Okay, what was it?
Information and training on government assistance programs, both the disaster relief type programs and general financial support. Knowing what's available and how to access it seems to be really valuable.
That's very practical. Did they notice any differences between farmers, like based on age or experience?
Yes, they did find that younger farmers, on average, found financial topics more helpful than older farmers.
Interesting. Why might that be?
It could suggest they face different kinds of financial pressures, maybe less capital built up, more debt starting out, less experience navigating the system. It highlights that support probably needs to be tailored.
And how best to get that information to farmers? Does just putting it online work?
Apparently, maybe not always. The research suggested that relying only on websites and online materials might not be the most effective way to reach everyone.
So more personal contact might be needed.
Potentially, yes, or at least more accessible formats. And critically, the research stressed integrating financial management with stress management information. They shouldn't be treated as separate issues.
That makes sense.
And on a related note, therapists working with farmers really benefit from understanding the language, the culture, the specific stressors of agriculture. Certain therapy approaches like structural family therapy or Bowen's family systems theory might be particularly useful because farming often involves the whole family system.
Okay, so bringing all this together, what are the concrete action steps? What can new and aspiring farmers listening right now do? And what about the rest of us, policymakers?
Right, for you, if you're new or thinking about farming. First, set clear goals. Use that SMART framework-specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound for both personal and financial goals.
Get specific.
Yes. Then, budgets. Detailed household and farm budgets. Track everything coming in and going out. Use templates if they help. The University of Maryland Extension has things like field crop budget templates. Get comfortable with your financial statements, balance sheets, cash flow projections.
Don't avoid the numbers.
Definitely not. And talk to your lender proactively. Don't wait for a crisis. Discuss concerns, explore options, get advice from trusted sources, advisors, experienced farmers, mentors. Seek out different perspectives.
And resources.
Use them. University extensions often have webinars on risk management, funding options, understanding things like custom work charges, even health insurance options specifically for farmers. Look into those. And finally, consider getting trained in suicide prevention, mental health first aid, or QPR. Question, persuade, refer. Local extension offices often offer these, and it equips you to help yourself and others.
That's a solid list for individuals. What about the bigger picture actions? For communities, for policymakers?
On that broader level, the big one is policies that create more economic stability for farmers. That's fundamental. Continue and improve support for farmers wanting to adopt more sustainable practices.
Right, the agroecology transition.
Exactly. Make food sovereignty part of the agricultural goals. Invest in rebuilding rural infrastructure, broadband, healthcare, schools that supports communities. Actively address discrimination and violence in the sector.
And mental health access.
Massively expand access to farmer-focused mental health care. And keep supporting those farm organizations that are already doing crucial work on the ground.
Great. Now, before we wrap up, we wanted to share an exclusive bonus insight, some really crucial immediate support resources.
Yes, absolutely. If you or any farmer you know is struggling, please reach out. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7 nationwide. Just call or text 988.
Okay, 988.
You can also dial 211 pretty much anywhere to get connected to local health and human service resources. And specifically for farmers, there are networks like the Farming Community Network, or FCN. They offer free, confidential support from volunteers who understand farming. Their UK helpline is 03000111999, and their email is help@fcn.org.uk. Similar networks exist in other regions too, so it's worth searching for farmer support networks in your area.
That's great to know. FCN 0300001 in the UK. And a reminder about those practical tools.
Right. Don't forget the financial planning resources we mentioned. University extensions like Maryland or the Virginia Cooperative Extensions publication ALCE 220NP have excellent guides for budgeting and farm financial management. And while the USDA website, usda.gov topics farming grants and loans has information on programs, remember that research suggests farmers often find direct support and clear, accessible information more helpful than just navigating complex websites.
Okay, thank you. It's so clear from everything we've discussed just how tightly linked financial health and mental health are in farming, especially perhaps when you're starting out.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember that these struggles aren't usually signs of individual failure. They're often rooted in bigger systemic challenges that need both personal strength and changes in the system itself.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. We all depend on farmers. What more can we do, individually and as a society, to really cultivate a more supportive, sustainable environment for their work and their well-being?
It's a vital question. We really encourage you to check out the resources mentioned today and keep learning about these important issues. We hope this exploration has been valuable. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Hitting that like button and smash that subscribe.